Is Canada going to get universal basic income? There was a recent press conference with members of Canadian Parliament on October 17, 2023, that didn't really get that much attention. I never saw it, at least. I don't think that many people actually saw it. It's really not in the national discourse right now. But they discussed an upcoming bill that's good that plans to make a framework for universal basic, or they call it a guaranteed livable basic income.
The bill would introduce a framework to develop a guaranteed livable basic income.
This is actually a big deal. Is Canada going to become the first major country to introduce this concept of universal basic income? Andrew Yang in 2020, he became decently popular, not really a household name, but he was preaching in America in 2020 the idea of this universal basic income as a way to supplement people's incomes, because just the way the economy has been changing, it's become kind of a winner-take-all economy with a lot of people at the top having a ton of money. And if the median salary, especially in Canada but other countries, it really is not keeping up with the cost of living. My first thought regarding this bill is that I really hope this becomes more popular of a discussion in Canada. This is a lot more relevant, even if you're against this idea, this is a lot more relevant to most people's lives than the things that get discussed right now in Canadian politics. You can't go 10 minutes without hearing about climate change or some social issues. We need to talk about economics in this country. At least this universal basic income can start a debate. For one, how are we going to pay for this? Is it needed? Is it stupid? Is it going to make people lazy? Do people actually need this benefit to supplement? Like if you're a median worker and you can't make ends meet, you can't afford a house, is this a good idea or not? And the way the pros and cons of that and have that debate. But that doesn't happen. If you watch even like the question period in Canada, the media, any channel, the overwhelming topics are climate change, social issues, and personality attacks. And yes, the housing crisis too. And I think that is good, by the way. We should be talking about that. So that's the first thing. I'd really like to see this debate. But is this the right idea for Canada? Do you think this would actually work? Because Canada, our economy, I mean, I really think universal basic income is a thing that is inevitable in the next maybe 10, 20, 30 years, just based on the way the economy works today. These large technology companies, I mean, unless something really changes, but these large technology companies kind of become monopolies. It's sort of a winner-take-all economy in that regard. The other thing is that the government just prints all this money every time there's a recession, which drives up wealth inequality because all the printing of money ends up fueling asset prices. So there's two things there. And then plus globalization, the way that you can just trade globally at a level that's never been seen before in history also drives wealth gaps because companies can hire workers from out of their country, stuff like this. Countries that are well off can buy products from countries that are less well off. That contributes to the wealth gap. They don't have to pay workers in their own country for certain types of labor. And there's just the emergence of AI and how many jobs is that going to be displacing. I mean, there's been lots of events in history that have displaced jobs, but there's a real argument to be made that once AI is efficient enough and it works good enough, it's going to replace a ton of jobs, not just blue-collar jobs, a lot of white-collar jobs as well. So I really think I think this universal basic income is actually inevitable. The question is, does Canada need it, and does Canada need it right now in the short term, or maybe not? Do we need it, but is it the right idea right now? And I'd probably say, to be honest, probably not. I mean, Canada has not really grown its economy since 2015. Really, in the last 10 years, it's barely moved. It's gone up a tiny amount. Compare that to other countries like the United States. The United States still has a lot of problems, but their economy is still growing. Canada needs to fix our economic growth problem, or how are we going to pay for this universal basic income? We can't really just raise taxes any more than they are, and we've gone into a bunch of new debt. We have a debt to GDP ratio that's still creeping up, and we can't go into as much debt as the United States can. The United States as a country is so powerful. It's the world's reserve currency, strongest military. So much of the world relies on America. That's not true for Canada. We actually could default on our debt. We don't have nearly the international leverage or bargaining power that the United States have. So we can't just go into a bunch of debt like the United States can, at least not to the degree they can anyway. So that'd be the obvious first question is, how are you going to afford this universal basic income? And how much would it be? Like, would it be, I think in the States, Andrew Yang was proposing $1,000 a month. I mean, that's a lot of money. I mean, if Canada gave every Canadian, say, like $1,000 a month, like Andrew Yang's plan was, that's $40 billion total that they have to give out every month, $480 billion a year. Canada only takes around 420 billion of tax every year. So that's already over 100% of the entire tax revenue that you're taking in on UBI. So, I mean, that's not going to work. So what's the number going to be? 500 a month, 250 a month, some kind of means test. So if you're wealthy enough, you're not going to take it in. But still, if they did this right now, most Canadians probably would not meet the threshold to not get it. Like, most Canadians are not doing great right now. Most Canadians are struggling with housing, etc. So there's a lot of questions to be asked. You can't just give 100% of your tax revenue out, or more than 100 every year. That's never going to work. So as I mentioned with the economy, I don't see how Canada is in a strong enough economic position to do this. But again, it's still worth having a debate. Maybe you can phase it in a little bit or just do a small amount. But yeah, I still, those numbers just totally not add up. If you give out $480 billion a year in UBI and you collect $420 billion a year in tax revenue, that's totally unrealistic. So like I said, we'll see what happens with this debate. I mean, clearly there's a very strong case to not do it. The one thing I'd say, though, to people who think that universal basic income is a bad idea because it's going to promote laziness or it's just inherently unfair, and people who pay taxes and stuff shouldn't be subsidizing people who can't make enough money basically to hit a certain threshold. Our society already has basically a universal basic income for rich people. And it's called quantitative easing. Anytime there's a problem with the economy, stocks go down, stuff like that, and there's people panic, and there's this massive recession, the government across the world, this isn't just Canada, USA, etc., print a ton of money. They call it quantitative easing, and they bail out the government basically by lending it a bunch of money. And then that money gets flooded into the economy, into banks, into the economy in general. And what that ends up doing is just boosting the price of assets back to, I mean, usually it overcorrects. Like you saw in the pandemic, as the pandemic was happening, everyone was staying at home, stock prices were at record highs in like December 2020 as people were out of work, etc. Yet people's stock portfolios are doing great. And stock portfolios are basically, in general, held by the top 1 to 10% of people. In the United States, for example, top 10% of people own 93% of the stock market. So the idea that universal basic income is unfair, I don't agree with. If you're going to say that we have a society or a economy where we do quantitative easing and print a ton of money whenever there's a problem, that money ends up overwhelmingly in the hands of rich people. So if you're going to have that system, you also need to have something to offset that. And I think universal basic income is a great way, actually, to offset that. It's just, can Canada do it right now? Probably not, to be honest, but we'll see. So anyway, with that said, I think I'll probably do a couple more videos on this because I find it a pretty fascinating topic. I really wish it becomes a national debate. I would way rather debate this and watch people on TV, etc., debating this than, I mean, we've been debating climate change and carbon tax for years. This is more relevant to the average person's life. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Have a good day.